There we go. Amazing. Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. Happy Halloween as well. I'm more of a Christmas girl myself. I tend to wish Halloween away so it could finally be November and I can start celebrating. I've lived in my own apartment for around 2 years now. This will be my third Christmas. And every year I try and bring forward my tree date. So I'm hoping soon I'll get my tree up. But thank you so much for joining us today. Wherever you're located, evening, morning, lunchtime, we really appreciate your time. If you have attended a PLM webinar before, then welcome back. If you haven't, then hello. Today's session is going to be awesome. What I would love for you guys to do, if you're able to, is open up the chat box and let us know what your name is, what do you do, and where are you from? And we would love to get to you guys a little bit more today. That would be awesome. Cool. So numbers are going up, but I guess we can just dive in.
Yeah.
Amazing. Cool. Do we have our slides ready as well?
Yes.
Awesome. I'm so excited to be chatting with you today, Miruna. We're going to be talking about all things social media ideas. You and I know, and everyone watching probably knows, the days when we sit down, we need content for next week, we need it for today, we need it for tomorrow. It's total mind blank. And I know that we've discussed in planning for this webinar how hard it can be to keep up with ideas every single day. But today we're going to be teaching you guys some strategies, some kind of work tools to help you on the days when those ideas just are not flowing. But before we do, we're going to quickly introduce ourselves before we dive in. Awesome. I was hoping that was the next slide. So hi, I'm Sophie, founded Pretty Little Marketer. It's my little baby. And I, as well as running PLM, and a freelance social media manager. So it's not just the PLM socials I run every day. I'm actually in charge of running 9 social media accounts for clients at the moment. And that is as one person. So content block for me is a real thing, especially when you're kind of dipping in and out of different niches, as well as running your own socials. I've grown our PLM community to 250,000 across platforms, which is crazy, and I love each and every one of you equally and dearly. And PLM, if you're unaware, I would call it a home for social media people on the internet. The aim here is just to inform and inspire everybody to be confident in the absolute crazy world that is social media and digital marketing. And today I'm joined by the amazing Miruna. Would you like to introduce yourself to everybody?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Miruna. I am the CMO at Planable, and I've been here for about 4.5 years now, leading growth efforts in the team. And for those who don't know, Planable is the social media collaboration platform, meaning it's a way for teams to work together on all their social media content, approve it, schedule it, and do everything behind the scenes that usually takes a long time if done through spreadsheets and emails.
Awesome. And I love Planable. The chat is disabled. So Miruna, I'm not sure if you're able to fix that. I was wondering why there were questions coming up so soon. But guys, we will try and fix that for you now.
Yes, awesome. I am on it.
Cool. I will ramble whilst we fix it. But I was introduced to Planable earlier this year, quite in the early months of 2022. And I'd heard of Planable before, but the team, Miruna, you and your amazing team reached out, and we've been working together since. And Planable is now what I use to schedule. I use it for all of my client socials. So if you haven't checked out Planable and you're watching, highly recommend, not just because Miruna is here and I have to say that, but because genuinely I really do love the tool. How are we doing with the chat?
I delegated that, so hopefully it will be up and running in a few minutes. I'll let you know once we do, but in the meantime, we can continue.
Awesome. I mean, Zoom never makes these things easy, so
yes, there's so many settings when setting this up. There's always something that I miss. I'm sorry for that.
No worries at all. Awesome. So what we're going to be covering today, as we've mentioned, is this thought around how to keep social media content ideas flowing always, not just sometimes, not when inspiration sparks, but all of the time. So today we're going to be talking about building content pillars that make posting easy. I know that I spend a lot of time online, and I often see people talking about content pillars, but I'm always told what they are, but never how to build them. So today we're going to be given those tools. We're going to be talking a little about how to find content inspiration, when the mind is totally blank. What do you do next? Because sometimes Pinterest or, looking on the Instagram Explore page, it just doesn't cut it. And we're also going to be talking a little too about what to do when the ideas stop, how to work with your team and the people around you to kind of reignite that fire. And throughout today, we're going to be demonstrating how you can do that on Planable as well. And if you have any questions, also we can run through those at the end too. So hopefully that sounds like what you signed up for and sounds like it's going to solve a few problems today. So with that, we'll dive straight in.
Yes. Okay, so we'll start with some context on why this is a problem. The first thing that I'm sure we can all agree on is that we are handling more and more channels, social media channels in general, and that's whether because, brands are expanding and they need more pages, or, just new networks are resurfacing, just like, TikTok did a couple of years back, and now Be Real is kind of seems like something that might go big, and we might have to find a way to make our brands pop in. But one way or another, more and more channels need to be handled. So the processes are definitely getting more gruesome. And consistency is important. It's not just, it's not a myth. Everyone knows it. If you post too rarely, the algorithms are just not going to be able to help you. And if you don't keep a specific rhythms, then, the audience will just won't know what to expect. And then a lot of social media managers don't really get that much support in terms of content that's being provided to them. Either, that content's not being collected, or it's not just the flows aren't right. So the content gets in time in the right form for social media managers. Quantity is not just, it is important for social media. Maybe it's not in a lot of other cases, but it's one of those things. And if you post once every other week or month, even if it's high quality, the quantity is not just not going to be enough to grow those channels. And finally, there is not enough content being created at all to keep up with the demand. So there's a lot of need for improvisation every now and then. And that all leads to this context that we have, that it's really, really easy to just run out of ideas entirely for social media content. And that happens constantly. It's an ongoing problem. So we'll just jump right into solutions. Before we do an update on chat, it doesn't seem like it's going to allow us to enable it. It's probably because there's too many participants or some Zoom limitations, but we'll have to make do with the Q&A. So do write everything you want in there. Okay. So for the content pillars, I'm sure most of us, have heard about this notion, and it's used in a lot of different contexts, not only in social media, but also in content initiatives in general, even at a brand level. But why are they helpful for this specific problem of generating social media ideas constantly? Well, the first reason is that it gives you structure to your brainstorming. You're no longer kind of searching in this big internet wormhole that you can very easily get lost in, but you have something to start with, whether that's, today we post about industry news, so that gives you a very, very clear direction, what to look for, what to search for, what ideas to come up with, rather than just scattering all over the place. Secondly, because you have these content pillars very nice and tidy laid out, you can build a roster for those uninspired moments. Meaning that you can have backup plans, basically. Whenever you have those staring at a blank screen kind of moments, you have something to fall back onto. And, that can be an internal doc where you store all the customer testimonials that come along the way. You can even have an album with all the visuals if you have a specific template in which you showcase them. You can have, folders with product information, basically places where you can go and get the content you need that's been really truly planned in advance, that if you just wake up one week, you have a backup plan to fill that entire week out if there's nothing major out there. And third, you can really organize these sources of information. So again, the planning and organizational, it helps really lift that pressure off a social media manager's shoulder. It helps you have a more balanced distribution. And, you can have, if you post about industry news, going back to that example, you can have a list of 20 publications that you check out regularly, you're subscribed to their newsletter from the industry of that brand, and it's you can share out of those whenever, again, you need some inspiration. Okay, so we're all aligned into why they are important and how they can help, these content pillars. So the next question is how to create them. If you don't have them, or if they need a refresh because they were made at some point when you took over maybe, or by the last social media manager, then this should really help you start from scratch. So this is a very common piece of advice to start with the goal. It's always being said. It's said here as well. Start with why social media is being done for this brand. What purpose does it serve? And if we were to kind of simplify this, I would split it into these three main goals. Either it's there to attract, or to convert, or to retain. Attract means that it's mostly with this purpose of getting a new audience that's never heard about the product, never heard about the brand, so you want to get the name out there. Converting means that these people have had some sort of interaction with your brand, so what you want to do through the content published via your pages is to convince them to go on the website, try a service, a product that you offer, basically take them to a further, warmer step of your funnel. And finally, to retain means that out of your research that most of the social media followers that you have are already customers, are already users. So what you want from them is to continue using, continue pushing, and keeping them up to speed with everything that the company does. So then, depending on the goal that you define in the previous step, you now want to really decide the balance that is appropriate for this goal, because you'll talk about different things depending on each of these purposes. So if you're there to attract, for example, I would say that about 50% of your content should be directed towards the scope of entertaining, meaning, you don't want to push your brand yet, you haven't established any kind of relationship, so you want to, attract. And you attract via entertainment or education, or, valuable content that they can first see the value and then be asked to engage, for example. And that's about 50%, but then 30% you start educating on the problem that you're solving, not the product yet, but the problem. So if you're a pet food store with a very healthy pet food, pet nutrients or vitamins or whatever, then you start discussing about pet health, about problems that can appear from bad food and so on and so forth, not necessarily about how your product is better, but why it's important to care about the topic first. And then finally, about 20%, you do have the space to start discussing about your product or service, just in a shy way at this point, I'd say. Then we have the conversion goal. Here, things change quite a lot. As you can see, you focus a lot more on educating on the problem. That is because at this point, you're thinking that if these people do follow you and they know about your brand, but they haven't done any action yet, then they are maybe not convinced, not aware about the problem and how important it is for them. So they know the product, but they don't know the problem that well. So that's why you focus on it. And then you keep some entertainment, about 20%. It's still social media, so you still want people to stick around and to get, whatever they're there for, you want to serve that to them. And almost everyone visits social media for a bit of entertainment as well. And educate on the product and service about 30% at this point. So you can step it up a bit, maybe not entirely though. And finally, for retention, educating on the product and service becomes more important. At this point, if the users are active, if they're already buying your service or product, they are interested to learn more by default. So they are already convinced, they just want to be kept up to speed. You don't educate on a problem anymore, because by this point, in theory, they should know the problem since they came to you to fix it, but rather you'd like to engage them, offer deals, offer all these kinds of reactivation, and with the scope of increasing the frequency of use. And yes, keep entertaining, but maybe at this point you would like to build brand love, so entertainment can be more product focused. It can be related to your brand and product without feeling like you're making it rigid or stiff in any way. I would say this is kind of, the map of distribution of how you can keep the balance between what your content serves at each, depending on the scope. Of course, treat this with a grain of salt. It's just a way to kind of think about it and to kind of balance that out, but you can change them depending on the particular case that you have. And then whatever part of the funnel social media serves, whatever the balance you choose, you then have to translate them into what that means for your brand. And that's how you'll finally get your content pillars. So what does entertainment for the purpose of attraction means to your brand? Is it clips of cats, or is it industry specific memes? After that, you can be you can really define that content pillar, whatever it is. And the same goes for education on the problem. It can be about health. It can have various angles to it. So the problem that you serve can have different angles. For example, for Planable, I would say we care about efficiency, but then we care about alignment. So these are all problems that we solve, but then these would serve as different content pillars, if that makes sense.
Amazing. I have a question from Laura, yes, actually, on content pillars. So Laura has said, hi, I'm Laura. Hi, Laura. Thanks for being here. So Laura is currently in a junior marketing role, and they have a quick question on how to create content pillars. So would these three pillars work in tandem with each other, or would you target each pillar one at a time?
I would say they work in tandem very well. So it's very important to have balance. Very few, I'd say, social media pages or brands have a very, very specific niche and type of content. I know a few, but those aren't usually brand related, but are strictly for entertainment or education. Otherwise, for brands, I would usually recommend a balance between all of these, and all of these, again, they can split into more content pillars. So these aren't necessarily 3 content pillars, but they can each be split into 4 other content pillars if you, again, have multiple angles.
Awesome.
Do we move on?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay. Okay, so the thing about content pillars, and I've seen this a lot of times in the places I worked, is that we really invested a lot of effort into defining them at first. But then this one thing happened in which we look at that beautiful map of what they are, how they translate into content and everything, and examples. But then when we actually start doing the work, somewhere it gets lost along the way. We forget to use them. After a few weeks, we forget about, assigning a specific content pillar to each piece of post that we post. Either we don't have the visibility. In any case, they get lost. So it's that classic gap between strategy and execution that I think is found in a lot of places and ways. So this part is about when you finally have them, how can they really take that important part in your day-to-day work? And so, of course, this is technology is important. Planable can really help with that. If you use another tool, you can check out if they have a solution for this as well. But what I would focus on is that you have to be able to see these content pillars that you use in one way or another. Even if it's a spreadsheet, they have to be highly visible whenever you plan your content, because if they're somewhere buried in that doc, you will just forget about using them. And you have to be able to look at it at a glance as well, not only to remember them, but to kind of be able to check out that balance. Because what you want to do is not, talk about the same topic for a month and completely forget about your other topics. Would you agree, Sophie? Is that
Absolutely. For my content calendar, I just use like a Google Sheets or like an Excel spreadsheet, and I find that being able to like visually see what I'm posting over the next few weeks really helpful. Obviously, with Planable, you can schedule your content as well, so you can see, we're selling here, we are attracting community here, we are talking about our product here. So yeah, I think if I didn't physically see it, it would get lost. Absolutely.
Yeah, that definitely happens. In this case, in the screenshot, you see these little tags are the labels. So the content pillars. So when you have that calendar, you'd be able to see exactly how they spread out and what kind of balance you're keeping.
Amazing. We do have 2 questions in the chat as well, actually, on content pillars. First one is from Fars, and I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Thank you so much for joining us today. They have asked, how would you suggest presenting these pillars? So perhaps to a team. You suggested a spreadsheet, but are there any tools, Miruna, that you would potentially suggest as well?
For presenting them to the team first when they launch, I would suggest to go with something that kind of has a way to visualize mind map, sort of, like Miro is a pretty great tool in terms of, being able to draw a mind map and to go through steps. I think it's important to present them in a way that they flow logically, because again, there are multiple layers to this. So it can start with the big brand, with the product, with the audience, how the interests intersect, and then you can unfold that more and more until you reach the end content pillars. So I go with a visual way of presenting them rather than a spreadsheet. I think I mentioned a spreadsheet like for the day-to-day, but when you present them, I think I think it's important for everyone to understand why and how you reached them.
Awesome. I totally agree. Another tool that I would recommend for visualizing is a tool called Visme. It's Visme. It's a bit like Canva, but for like your data and presenting. So it's just a bit more, it flows nicely. So Visme is a really good one as well. And yeah, very much recommend day-to-day spreadsheet. Google Docs is free. Google Sheets also free. Absolutely can't go wrong with it. Awesome. A few other questions we will roll through. We have a question from Jack. So Jack says, good afternoon, Jack here. Hi, Jack. Jack is a marketing and performance analyst at BT. Awesome. So just a question on the content pillars. Would it be worthwhile having a section of a day dedicated to creating these content pillars, i.e. when it's quiet in the office on a Friday afternoon?
Well, I'd definitely say you need some peace of quiet for this, because, you know, it's a very strategic exercise, and you need some deep work, you need some inspiring music in your headsets. You can do it with a team as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be an individual way. And I'd like to add something more here. This is kind of one way that you can start with content pillars, with the goals. Another one would be to start with the classic Venn diagram of what your brand likes to talk about versus what your audience wants to hear, and kind of focus on that intersection there. And that could be a way. And you can really try to come up with 2 or 3 such exercises, and then go into a brainstorming that kind of alternates between individual brainstorming and a team brainstorming. So you can first give some, 10 minutes, half an hour for multiple people to try it out, and then get together, vote, see where the ideas overlap, and then go with it. But you should have dedicated time for this. Remember that this is, one-time thing, or it should be revamped every 3 to 6 months tops. So it should be okay to kind of dedicate half a day for it.
Absolutely agree. I totally love how you mentioned like making a collaborative effort. So I'm a team of 1. I freelance, so when I kind of work with teams, the social media responsibilities on me. But something I always try and do is include the client in that wider conversation. Who are you trying to retain? What does the customer want to see? What has worked before? And collaborating with them. 2 minds are better than 1, aren't they? So I love that you've touched on that. And someone has just asked for a reminder of the tool that you mentioned as well. And I'm going to pop it in the chat.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. Oh, it's a Miro. Miro.
Amazing. Thank you. Cool. Some other questions on strategy, but we'll get to those at the end. Awesome.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so I think this, I'll give the microphone to you, Sophie, for this part.
Thank you. Amazing. Well, Miruna, thank you so much for that on content pillars. I always find content pillars like an easy concept to understand. It's just topics that I regularly post about. But something I really struggle is explaining to other people like, okay, well, this is how you get to the conclusion on what you should regularly post about. So I love the percentages and how you've presented that to us there. And hopefully you guys watching too, that's been super helpful. I actually saw a post on LinkedIn this morning from a really good friend of mine called Tarek. Some of you, if you're on LinkedIn, you might have seen him over there. He's awesome. But he did a post this morning. I was quick to politely disagree, always respectful, always diplomatic in the comments. And the kind of the sentiment of his post was about how content pillars are rubbish, or like you shouldn't have them. And in the comments I was like, no, you should absolutely have content pillars, like they're awesome. And for me, they kind of encompass, they are the like the outside to everything that I do. So yeah, love that you've emphasized the importance there as well. So let's say we've got our content pillars. We know that 1 pillar is aimed to retain, One is aimed to attract, and one is aimed to sell, potentially. We've got three aims here, 3 things that we're going to be talking about. But the next step is actually to turn that into content. So, you touched on cat videos, we've touched on memes, which are super awesome. I'd love to see more of those in the Planable feeds. But the next step is to, of course, get inspired. And inspiration, it can be a really tricky one to come by. But here are a few ways that I get inspired when it comes to creating content. So I actually posted on LinkedIn this morning to firstly tell everyone that our webinar is happening today and they have to sign up to hear everything awesome that you have to say. But secondly, just to share a few tips around how I manage 12 social media accounts as a team of 1. And first thing to preface, it's not easy. It's not easy coming up with content ideas every day, but there are ways to make it easy. So the first place I begin whenever I'm struggling is to brainstorm what I know about my audience and research what I don't. So using PLM and Pretty Little Marketer as an example, I know that my audience are marketers, social media managers, founders, new marketers. So that is what I know. By job title, I know who might follow or be in our community. But what I might not know are their biggest struggles when approaching social media content. I might not know, how long they've been in marketing. I might not know other things about them in their role and their approach to marketing. So my next step would be to research the things that I don't know. I don't know if I've got a separate point on this, so we'll go to the next one. Awesome. This isn't all I was thinking of, but that's absolutely fine. So we'll just go back 1 second to researching what we don't. Something I really love to do, and it really depends on how you use your social media, what sort of brand account you run, but talking to your audience. If you follow PLM on Instagram and you watch my very rambly long stories, you might have participated last week in a bit of a get to know you activity. So on stories, I posted polls and it was like, are you a student or marketer or graduate? Awesome, instantly I know a little more about the people that have decided to participate. I think another question was what PLM content do you love the most? Is it case studies? Is it top tips? Is it videos? So directly asking the people that you are marketing to. If you are working a bit formally and just shoving some things on Instagram stories might not work for your strategies, using a newsletter to send out a survey, incentivizing that, maybe the people that fill in your survey, they might get entered into a prize draw, or they might get a special discount, but connecting with your audience and researching what you don't know about them. You can't get wrong with research-based evidence. So any way you can speak with them, very much recommend. Awesome. The next thing is to use tools that make content ideas easy. Again, I'm a team of 1. So everything I have is in this brain, and some days there's not much in there. So using tools that make content easy, and I'll type this one in the chat. You may have heard of it before, you may not have. But it is a tool called Answer the Public. Now, Answer the Public, you get 3 free searches a day. But if you went on to Answer the Public and you typed in a keyword such as social media, it will come up with all of the how, what, when, where, who, why, and evers, every question that you can imagine that people are asking related to that keyword. So it might come up with things like, what is social media? Why is social media important? But I find just by seeing those questions related to a keyword that you regularly post about, immediately sparks content ideas. So Answer the Public is a really good one. There's also another one, a little different, and hopefully I'll get the name correct, but it's HubSpot's blog idea generator. A little different as it is a blog idea generator, but haven't used it in a while. As far as I remember, again, you can type in a keyword, social media, content creation, LinkedIn, and it will give you blog title suggestions. Top 3 reasons why you need to be on social media. You can take those blog title suggestions and you could turn it into a reel or an Instagram story or a LinkedIn post. So finding ways to make content come to you. Game changer. And I do it far more often than I would probably admit. But yeah, using those tools to spark idea sometimes just takes one thing and you can have that domino effect. Awesome. My next tip is to check the numbers because they never lie. Unless maybe you've gone viral accidentally and then all of your stats and your numbers are a bit skewed. This happened to me recently on TikTok. I was very lucky and also unfortunate that one of PLM's TikTok videos reached over 1 million views. Please don't ask me how. I have no idea. The reason we're not talking on TikTok today is because I do not know how to use it. But I'm learning. And the reason I say it's unfortunate is because, one, some of the comments are a bit hurtful to my kind soul, as they sometimes are on TikTok. But two, totally skewed my numbers. I didn't really know who was following the account anymore. I didn't know who that had got in front of, because obviously it wasn't in that retain content pillar. But aside from the times when the numbers do go a little crazy, look at your metrics. The last 3 months of your Instagram content, what posts have performed best? Has it been your last 3 reels? They've been really awesome because they're on a particular topic. Out of your 3 content pillars, is your entertain, or your memes, your tweet screenshots, are they performing best? Why do you think that is? What insights can you draw and how can you replicate that again? I'm a very, very big fan of recycling content. So I did a post on Instagram a while back that was, what was it? I think it was 3 reasons why you need to use LinkedIn, or 3 ways to use LinkedIn. I took that post of the 3 top tips. I took 1 tip and turned it into its own individual post. So what have your audience loved before? What can you learn from that? And how can you potentially replicate it, do a new spin on it? You've done 5 top tips for growth. Audience loved it. Can you do 5 things that are hindering your growth? Spin on it. Use what you've got. Recycling, it's not a bad thing. My next tip is to get off the internet. And I know it sounds totally backwards, but for me, some of my best ideas. So if you saw the notes app on my phone, you'd think I was very unorganized. But I always seem to get my best ideas when I'm laying in bed at night. So if I was in the Truman Show and there was a camera on my ceiling whilst I was sleeping, you would probably see almost every night my hand peeking out from my covers, grabbing my phone and then quickly typing before I nod off to sleep because I've had a content idea, a series idea. But finding things that you love as a hobby can often reignite that creativity. So for me, it's lying in bed. I know others sometimes when they're at the gym or they go on a morning walk, they find that a really, really good way to kind of refresh their brain and spark new ideas. Aside from getting out of the house, because sometimes we don't have time for that, there aren't points in the day that spark creativity. Rather than getting off the internet, at least get off your home pages. Stop scrolling through Instagram to try and see what others are doing to spark your own ideas. Something that I really love to do is I don't do it as often as I used to, but at least once a week, I watch the #1 top trending video on YouTube. Sometimes they are absolutely random. Sometimes I'm watching, the biggest pop star in Portugal's music video, but other times it's a daily vlog of someone really awesome or someone's day in a life or something completely different, but it's so far outside of my niche and what I would typically enjoy. It could be a really good way to find inspiration. Listen to podcasts. I did a LinkedIn post on this a while ago, but I was listening to Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO. He was interviewing the ex-CMO of Nike, which is a guy called Greg, who's really awesome. And all the questions that the host was asking the attendee, I was noting down, so I wanted to answer them my own answers on LinkedIn or on the PLM Instagram. So stealing their questions, awesome. And the final thing I would recommend is ask your friends and family what they wish they knew about what you do. Not going to be useful if you're doing like different content, but for me, running PLM is a bit like a baby blog, or writing about marketing on what I do on LinkedIn. I'll often message my mum and be like, what don't you know about Instagram? Or text a friend and be like, what do you wish you knew about what I did, or freelancing? Really easy to assume that our audience know everything that we know, and often they don't. So getting off the internet and finding other places, a really good way to refresh what's in your brain. So hopefully that bit on inspiration has sparked some inspiration. But of course, a really awesome way to do so is to collaborate. And Miruna, I know you have some awesome tips on how to do so.
Yeah.
So we'll pass the mic back over to you.
Yeah, I loved what you said, and it brought me some things I wanted to share as well. For example, on the researching what you don't know, I have to share this thing that we do, this trick that we do inside the Planable team, because again, our audience are you guys, social media managers. So then it's important for us to understand the day-to-day problems, the questions, everything. But sometimes, we ask on our channel, but sometimes, we might want to, because the purpose is a lot of acquisition for us, and we might not get the same answers then from an entirely new audience. So what we do is that the team is kind of, we have insights shift. This is what they're called. So what happens is that we each kind of keep an eye out for the communities and the news every other week. So then we would basically just stalk and lurk in the communities and read what people are discussing and what they're helping each other with. And that really sometimes gives us amazing content ideas, because and they start with the real problems that our audience is talking about. So that's how we know we're actually solving something. We're not just sourcing our own brain, but also the brains of our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And a really good place to do that, just before we move on, if you didn't already, is Facebook groups. So yes. I'm in those. We have a PLM Facebook group, but I'm in those of other marketing ones. And often, like you said, people will ask questions like, hey guys, I don't know how to price myself as a freelancer. Awesome. Well, I do know that. So now I'm going to make a post on it. So yeah, no, love that tip. Amazing.
Awesome. Okay, so the third solution here is collaboration. You mentioned this, Sophie, before, and I always love to say this. More brains is better than one brain, always, in all contexts possible. It helps because, first of all, social media management often falls on the shoulders of one single person. And even, I know there are companies out there that have teams of social media management of 10, 20, 100 people. But that doesn't necessarily that this changes. It doesn't mean that. I personally worked at Oracle on a 20 people social media team. And I can tell you the managing of a page in itself was still one person's responsibility, because the company had so many brands. Each of us would manage 1, 2, 3 brands on social. So this kind of hurts that more brains, more ideas situations. And then, obviously there's just so many ideas that one brain can generate on the same topic. I mean, of course, you can take a vacation, you can, try to go out for a run to come up with more ideas, but it has its own limitations. At some point, you can get exhausted or tired. And then content sourcing and creating can be done by multiple roles. We often live in this idea that social media management and social media content is the responsibility of the social media manager. But that's not entirely true, right? Because you don't only use your own ideas. You don't only use the visuals that you create. You source from whatever the company does on the side as well. So then remembering that and trying to integrate that into how you work and where the ideas come from will really help along the way. We'll go into that a few more slides, but yes. And of course, more people, more ideas. I cannot say this enough. It's very important to remember that as many people feel like they're engaged and involved in a process, you're gonna have more stuff to go to. So, okay, the next question is, who should be invited and integrated into this social media process? It's hard to point exactly to roles because each company is organized in a whole different way. So I'd rather think about it in terms of what purpose each person would help you with in your social media. So the first purpose would be, the category of content creators. That is not necessarily the content marketers that have that in their job title, but there are many other organizational functions that constantly create content. They might just not be immediately labeled as so. For example, HR is a humongous content creator, right? They post jobs, they create internal events, they capture content from those internal events, they build case studies, they build internal programs, they have success stories within the company. They have so much behind the scenes content for their internal communication. And a lot of it might be shareable to the external audience and might be relevant to them as well, because you might want to humanize the brand, you might want to show who's behind it, you might want, it really might help you with your own purposes. Then, PR has their media hits, they have a place with all the, they track everywhere where the brand is being talked about, where it comes up in the news. And so that is in itself a piece of content that you want to share, you want to brag about, you want to repurpose. And it's not just that, but PR also has their own agendas that they want to push in the media. And of course, it would be very good if the media agenda would be aligned with the social media agenda. Same goes with brand teams that have their own dedicated campaigns and initiatives. And the last point here, I think, is the one that's a lot of the times overlooked, and that is the frontline workers. For any businesses, brands that have brick and mortar businesses or physical presence involved, there is so much content just waiting to be captured and shared there. And that is, if you have coffee shops, then you have baristas that make amazing coffees and that they can photograph and give and share that content with the team. If you have gyms, you have fitness coaches that, again, have clients go to the gym every day. They can, again, capture and share content. Really, it applies to so many businesses. If you have cosmetics, salons that, again, people on the front lines are the best to capture that content. So what you need is to get them involved, give them an easy way to share, because you have to remember it's your main goal. So you have to make it as easy as possible for them to capture and share, and maybe build incentive schemes for them to do that. Think of it as start with the baby steps and then turn it into a bigger program, but do not forget about these frontline workers. The second category is subject matter experts. And these people and roles can, again, be very different from one company to another, but the biggest subcategories would be product experts, those roles in the company that really, really know everything there is about your product and that can help you because you might not be as technical and as product informed as they are. So they can come to you with new information, new details, and they can help you translate those technical pieces of information into benefits for the audience. And audience experts. So, for example, again, for us at Planable, who's the best person to discuss with about our social media content is our social media person, but that's just a coincidence because they're also our audience. But it's good to bounce off ideas with whoever in the company is the closest persona to your audience. And finally, there's this category, I would call it diversifiers. The main idea here is that it's not only about the content, but it's also about the angles in which you produce the content and you present it, because what you don't want is to be offensive by accident or ignorant or on some manners. And again, one person cannot know it all. They cannot be this know everything and anything about the world. So you need help here, and try to integrate people in the approval process or in the collaboration process that can give you a bit of feedback if the content can be offensive to anyone, if it's understandable by some people in your audience. And they can also come up with new angles and ideas, just like you said, Sophie, bouncing off ideas with your mother that isn't necessarily your direct audience. They can still help come up with fresh new ideas that you never would have thought of if you just stayed in your professional bubble. Mm-hmm. And of course, Planable can help with that. Planable is, as I said, that the collaboration platform for social media teams. So what happens here is that you can have everyone involved in this one place, in this one workspace. You can separate people depending on the brands that they are involved in and on the pages that they're involved in. They can leave feedback right next to the post, and you can also tag them, meaning if their input is not always needed, you can tag them whenever it is and ask them directly, and they'll get notified. So that can make the workflow run a lot smoother than it normally does. If you have people that you just don't regularly collaborate with, but for this one particular campaign or one particular post, you really need their input, their one-time input is available. So that means you can take one post that is super crucial and just share it with someone in the company that normally doesn't give feedback, so they're not in the tool. And you can have your approvals in the same place, one click away, and yeah, just get it live after that.
Amazing. Miruna, thank you so much. I feel like I bang on all the time about how much I love Planable. And yeah, love everything you've highlighted there, especially so for me, obviously I manage multiple clients, so having different workspaces for them, being able to schedule and approve things all in one place, like a dream come true. So thank you for coming into my life. I hope you guys have enjoyed what we've spoken through so far and found it helpful. Today we're going to be running through some of your questions. Well, today in the next 10 minutes we'll be running through some of your questions. So let me kind of like try and scroll back to the top of the questions, and we'll run through as many as we can. Maybe it's just easier if I scroll to the bottom. Quick question from Shannon: is it possible to see the recording? Yes, we'll be sending this out later. Awesome. Oh, so we have a question from Megan. So Megan has said that they are currently a digital marketer and illustrator. Amazing. How do you schedule time throughout your day/week to work on content? Megan has said that they always find themselves rushing to make content on the day, and they'd love to hear thoughts on keeping organized with content creation. So I will pose that to you first, Miruna.
Yeah, I think I generally advise for having dedicated time to do more of it. It's easier to get into the mindset to have a few hours in which you think about, brainstorm your content, put it in the calendar, and forget about it for another week or so, depending for how long you're gonna spread that content out. But otherwise, just thinking each day about what you're going to post can get really distracting and scary and overwhelming at times.
Absolutely. I was actually messaging, again, if a lot of you are on LinkedIn, you might know a girl called Izzy Pryor. If you don't, and you are on LinkedIn, highly recommend following Izzy because she's really cool. I was actually messaging my friend Izzy yesterday, and I was like, from the outside, I don't think people would know, but for at least the last 4 weeks, every piece of PLM content you've seen has been posted and made on the day, and it has been hectic. So something that I am really trying to implement as well, I manage a lot of accounts for my clients, is we have a schedule. So for me, I think what's going to work best is planning and creating Pretty Little Marketer content every 2 weeks. For me, I want to stay reactive. You know, I report on trends. I like to keep things relevant. So for me, every 2 weeks is going to work. Some clients we've agreed once a month we will like sit down and plan and create content. Others, they want it weekly. So first, I'd look at all of the accounts you run and decide how often am I going to sit down and create for, and make it reasonable. You don't have to sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to plan and create 1 month in the next hour. So you've got 30 posts to create and it's just not possible. You're not going to do it. So set a reasonable and kind of achievable time frame. And then I would allocate time and make it non-negotiable. I think sometimes when you work in teams, maybe you're not in a marketing team or you're like a one-person marketer in your company, it can be really easy for socials to be seen as like, oh, can we do another day? Like, can you just do this instead? Like, make sure that time in your diary is non-negotiable. So for me now, Tuesdays are going to be my PLM mornings. So every other Tuesday morning, I'm creating content for the next 2 weeks. I have one client, they're a podcast, and every Monday is their day where I create content for them for the next week. I've communicated that with them so they also know the schedule. So yeah, in a nutshell, pick your schedule and absolutely would allocate that time in and make sure no one can take the time away from you as well. Awesome. There's lots of questions, trying to get through as many as possible. Oh, a really good question from Ellie. So Ellie has said, hi Ellie. I am currently a digital marketing apprentice. How do you think of content ideas without keeping it all the same? Ooh, we try to do a lot of videos, but these take a long time. So yes, how do you think of content ideas without keeping it the same?
So, you can, if you have the content pillars, you can then diversify. So if you have, I can't think of another example. I said industry news so many times. I'm now stuck with this idea, but let's go with industry news. But then, it's never the same because there's always some different industry news. Or if you get tired of it, because this happens a lot for the people that actually manage whatever it is, they get tired before their audience does. You can think of new forms in which you present the same content. So if, you've been doing videos about industry news, you can now start doing stories or other formats. And then I think regarding what you said about how videos take a long time to build, I would recommend, especially for social, to think from the start about how scalable an idea is. So if you start doing the videos that you plan on doing every week or every other week, but you can see from the first few that they're super high production, take a long time, think of ways of dialing it down, because we're seeing the trends. More and more people appreciate authenticity rather than super high quality production and everything being in place. Try to take the scale of what you do lower and focus on the value of the content.
No, totally agree. One thing I would recommend is post it again. I follow this really awesome guy on TikTok and Instagram, because he kind of repubs his content, called JT Barnett. He is like the king of the creator economy. He's awesome, based in LA, and he talks a lot on how to make awesome content for brands and people. And something that he talks about a lot is if you posted it once, just post it again, but change the angle. So for example, I've shared today a tool called Answer the Public, and I've probably posted it on the PLM Instagram at least 4 to 5 times in the last year, but just angled differently. This is my favorite tool. then I share it, or these are 3 tools that I love, then it's like mixed in a bunch. So don't be afraid to share it again if you're able to. Another thing I would recommend is don't use up all your ideas too quick and create a series. Series are great because it keeps people coming back for more. What I used to do, and something I still do sometimes, especially on like my personal LinkedIn, was I'd give everything away in one post and I'd never be able to follow up. So here are, 50 things I wish I knew about LinkedIn a year ago. Putting it in one, that could have been 50 different posts. So try and split things up where you can. Yeah, I think those would be my best kind of 2. But yeah, totally a tricky one, Ellie. Really sympathize with you on that one. This is a hard one, but Miruna, awesome tips as well. Awesome, we are at 1 o'clock. Did you want to keep taking 1 or 2 questions?
Sure, let's take 2 more and then we can wrap up.
Cool, amazing. Just trying to pick some that like encompass. Oh, a good one from Erin. And I did see another question on this actually. So Erin has asked, how do you get people from your company to give you content for your social media company pages? I'll let you go first, Miruna.
I think first step is to form a connection and understand who can help with what. Do not, if you send an email blast to the entire company and say, hey, help me with content, then you're passing a lot of that work onto their shoulders in terms of they have to think what kind of content you need, what they can help with, and what format do you want them to send. So you're passing the responsibility too much. So then first, really be sure that you understand who can help you with what, and you can do that via some quick one-to-ones across the company, so that you gain some knowledge into what content they come across and what content they produce, and then kind of define and draw up a process that's super easy for them to do. You can build a form via Airtable or Google Forms, spread it across, set up a Slack bot that sends it every week, or just build that Slack bot and put a plannable link to it and they can just put up a post that says something, this link we just created, you do the copy, you do the rest, and set a very low bar for them to share. You can do the filtering afterwards as long as you have the ideas pouring in.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I freelanced with an agency last year, which left me managing LinkedIn pages and business pages for Kraft Heinz and Frasers Group. So like big companies of thousands of people, and I was a team of 1 in this room running their social media content for their business pages. And that was exactly what I did. If I wanted to talk to someone from HR about their upcoming graduate scheme, what do they look for in an ideal candidate? First, I'd email them, let them know what I was doing and why. I think the why is really important. Otherwise, it's like, well, what's the point? I've got a full-time job to do. I'm not a content creator. And then something I did was send a Google Forms link, and it would be like, what are your top 3 tips? Why do you hire candidates? So making it really easy and quick for them to, okay, awesome. All I need to do is answer these questions and then you do the rest. If you are trying to gather content from employees, I think incentivizing it is really important. So when I worked with Frasers Group, we had a hashtag on LinkedIn called #life@FrasersGroup. And every month on the odd occasion, like a graduate might do something awesome and they would do their own post, #life@FrasersGroup. And the incentive was, like, if you did post, we would then put it in our roundup to our 40,000 followers on social media because you've hashtagged it. I think they also got shout outs on their Slack channels and maybe other incentives as well. People are selfish and we have to give them a reason to get involved. So yeah, Google Forms, definitely awesome. And yeah, kind of why should they is the mindset that I would have in incentivizing that way. Awesome. One final question. I want to make it a good one. Oh, okay, good question from Amber. This will be the last one. So Amber has said, hello, if you have a small audience with little response, how do you research to grow? So I know I recommended things like newsletter, Instagram stories, but if they're not replying to you, then you're not going to get much out of there. So Miruna, I'll come to you first. How would you research to grow?
So yeah, again, if you don't have the audience, so you cannot research from your own audience, start with your competitors and with entertainers in your field. So for example, your competitors, that's an obvious one. Look at their audience, look at their content, try to understand what they're doing that you haven't so far. And then, when you want to really dig deep into what the audience wants to hear, you want to look at the big players, the big entertainers in your field, the big influencers. And there are influencers in any field, even if it's like even if it's very super technical, if you don't have influencers for the product that you're serving, look for influencers for your audience. So if it's super focused on health, mothers in their 40s to their 50s, you will find an influencer for that niche, even if what you're selling is vitamins that you may not have influencers specifically on vitamins. And then look at what they post and what's gaining super high engagement. Look at their hashtags, what they're using, what's making their audience be super, super involved, and try to gain your insights and understand how you can solve those problems.
Absolutely. That would also be my answer. I often say that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If someone else is doing it for you, you can just use that. Others in your niche, what are they doing? What works well for them? Performing like a bit of a competitor analysis, I suppose, on their socials is something I would definitely recommend too. When I first started PLM, firstly, I had no idea what I was doing. But secondly, as I did begin to build a community and a strategy, the first place I looked was, okay, others in my niche, what are they doing and how can I kind of replicate that in my own way? Amazing. I think we've got through at least some of the questions. But Miruna, thank you so much for your time today and your wisdom and sharing all of your amazing knowledge with us. I know that I now want to run away and refine all of my content pillars. So if you see me posting awesome content from now on, it's all thanks to you, Miruna. But I'm sure the community here too have enjoyed soaking up all of your wisdom and knowledge as well. The recording will be sent out soon, later at some point as well too, won't it? So if you're watching the recording, thank you for watching too. And yes, Miruna, just the biggest thank you to you and the team for being amazing as usual.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sophie, for doing this with me. And I really hope everyone enjoyed it. And we'll send all the beautiful resources that were shared here to everyone who attended or signed up.
Awesome. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, wherever you're joining from, and hope to see you all soon.
Bye.